Hello, I hope everyone is having a great day and recovering after the whole quarantine stuff that's been going on. A lot of you guys know, if you've been following my videos, is that I've used this YouTube channel as almost like an online journal of things that God has been teaching me through the different things. And, you know, when God first put it on my heart to start a channel and just record stuff, I think it's because he probably knew I wouldn't take the time out to write pages and pages of all the ways that God's working. And anyway, so during, for those of you who know my story, well, before I start into that, today I'm wanting to talk about God's perfect timing, resting in God's timing, having faith that his timing is going to work out, and that he provides for his children better than we can ourselves. So for those of you who've been following my story, know I was supposed to be out of my house, my perfect dream little farmhouse in the country, by the end of May. But because of all of the quarantine stuff and the government saying that my business is non-essential, which I have great issue with, I decided to actually after talking with some different people, decide to move out by the end of April. So just like a week and a half ago, because I had more time. So instead of waiting to the end of May when like business is getting back up and going, just spend that time when I have extra time and go ahead and move, pack up and move. So what that means is all my stuff is in boxes in a storage unit in someone's garage, and I still have stuff at my brother's place. So my stuff is scattered, my life is in boxes. I am framing it in the way of saying it's like living the life of a adventure gypsy girl instead of saying I'm homeless. So the place I'm in right now is pretty temporary. I do have the ability to stay there a couple months if that's how it works out. But you know, of course, like it's me and my kids. Like I like to be on my own. Like I like to have, I don't like to impose on people, like all that type of stuff. Like I don't like it. And so this morning, there's a lot of different decisions going on in my life right now. This morning I was going on a run, and it seems like God talks to me a lot, or maybe I hear better when I'm on a run. And I'm just bringing a lot of these things to God. In regard to my move and housing and all of that, I'm like, because of some things going on in June, I'm like, well, do I wait to the end of June, or do I, look at something for the end of May, which is just here in a couple weeks. I also have a few houses that are like in my back pocket, of like some leads and stuff that might work out. So like I'm bringing this to God because God knows the whole plan and the whole future, and he has led me so wonderfully with me and my children, and he knows what's ahead in the future. And so I want to bring these big decisions to him. And so I'm praying about it on my run, and I'm like, well, do I wait till the end of June, the end of May? Like, do I look at this house? Do I pursue this house? Do I wait and look in this other place? And he was like, do you need the place right now? And I'm like, well, not right this second. But like, if we're looking at the end of May, then, I'm needing it soon so I can make plans and put something together. And he's like, if you don't need it right now, then just wait. And he gave me that scripture that says, give us this day our daily bread. This is part of a prayer that Jesus taught his disciples to pray. Give us this day our daily bread. And so I'm the type of person that I really like to plan ahead. I like to have everything laid out. I know to some people, they're like, oh, you just seem so like spontaneous and all this stuff, which I can be if it is in regard to like fun things to do with my friends or my kids, but really in life stuff, I like to have a plan. I like to have things laid out. I like stability, and so, but he said, in regard to this, he said, give us this day our daily bread, not next week's bread, not next month's bread, but today. And he's like, if you don't need the house today, then just wait and trust that when that time comes that you need a place, it's going to be provided for you. And so, because he's done that this whole time. And so, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm like, I don't know if I like that answer, but okay, you know, and he brought to my memory a conversation I just had a couple nights ago with a missionary couple that's been on the mission field for a long time. And they were talking, and actually the woman of the couple was talking about waiting and waiting on God's timing. And when she was telling me this, I remember thinking, this is God's confirmation to me about another decision that I was thinking about. It had to do with timing and a lot of coordinating things. And you know, like I have this whole court thing that's still up in the air that you guys heard me talk about a couple of videos ago. You know, I've been waiting, gosh, for like 4 or 5 months to get a court date. And then right when it comes up, COVID happens. And so it gets canceled. So I'm like, man, I could be out another 4 or 5 months for this court date and all these different things. And instead of getting stressed about it, I was just like, you know what? God knows what's going on. I've prayed about this. I'm putting it in his hands. I'm okay with the timing of how it happens. And so I just gone through this thing with God like the week before. And so when she's telling me this thing about waiting, and she brings up the story of Abraham and how God had said to Abraham, made a promise to Abraham and Sarah, his wife, that they would have a child, and through this child that all the nations of the earth would be blessed, that Abraham would be the father of many nations, all from this promised child. And this would be a miracle because Sarah was very old, way past menopause, had never been able to have children before. And God makes this promise. And you know, for those of you who don't maybe know the whole story, what happens is Sarah and Abraham get impatient after a long time. And, you know, back in the day, they had like handmaids and servants and stuff. And she's like, you know, why don't you take my servant girl and try and fulfill this promise through her? And which he did, and produced a child, Ishmael, which became the father of the Arab nation. And then later on, Sarah goes ahead and gets pregnant. She has Isaac, which becomes basically the Jewish nation, or the Jewish people. And so Sarah and Abraham not waiting on God's timing and not being okay with that produced, that we see today, 2 huge nations of people that are at constant war and fighting each other, all from this little decision of Sarah trying to make things happen in her own time. She brought that story. So this missionary couple, the woman, brought this story up. And I remember hearing it and thinking, excuse me, thinking, this is God's confirmation to me of what I just gave to him. And was like, it's okay, God. However, whenever it happens, however long it takes, whatever, it's okay. And so as I was running, and God says the thing about give us the day our daily bread, he brings that conversation back to mind about Abraham and Sarah and waiting and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't want to make a bad decision like that. Like I get it. And what's funny is then after he brings that conversation to my memory, because he was like, you know, that was confirmation for this other thing that you let go of and gave to me, but he's like, it was also confirmation for this decision right now. And then after that, he brings another conversation to my head that I just had the week before in the midst of me moving and all of that. You know, some of you guys might know my friends Jody and Daniel. Jody is one of my good friends. She became my massage mentor, taught me everything about massage. Her and her husband Daniel have seen me, my whole story, walked with me through it. So they, you know, it's so nice having friends like that who are like there through the whole thing and know all the stuff. And you know, I was talking to him just like a week and a half ago, like in the midst of all this moving stuff. And I was pretty emotional because I'm like, you know, I am so sick of making lemonade. Like, I'm so sick of moving. I'm like having all my stuff in boxes. I don't know where anything is. There's school books that, you know, because I homeschooled before COVID. There's books I'm supposed to be getting out. No idea where they are. And like that feeling of like when everything is just feels out of control. And then knowing like my kids are, you know, having to go through this with me and me wanting to be a good mom and provide a good childhood for them. And I'm just like, start to cry. And I'm just like, I'm so tired of this. Like, you know, and just going through some self-doubt stuff. And Jody's always super encouraging. And she's like, honey, we think you're doing so awesome. And Daniel's like, Daniel brought something up. He was like, you know, faith, like we think about faith as, you know, people throw the word faith around pretty easily. Oh, you got to have faith for that, whatever. Like, it's just so easy. But like in the middle of going through a situation where you're walking down a road where you don't know what the next step is. You don't see what the future looks like. You don't know when or where things are going to happen, or when things are going to end. It's like that is a walk of faith and trusting God for it. And he brought up the story of Abraham and Isaac, but years down the road, after Sarah has a baby, Isaac, the promised child, where everything that God has said is caught up in this child, God asks Abraham to sacrifice him. And so they go on this journey. Of course, Abraham doesn't say it to Sarah. He doesn't tell Isaac. And Isaac asks his dad, Dad, where's the sacrifice? And he said, God will provide. God will provide a sacrifice. And it says in the New Testament how Abraham had decided in his heart or his mind that God could raise someone from the dead. And so they get all the way up to the place where the altar is going to be. He builds the altar. He ties Isaac up and is going to sacrifice him. And at that moment, the angel of the Lord stops him and says, okay, now I know that you will withhold nothing from me. And he says, I've provided I've provided the lamb in the bush that they were able to sacrifice. And so, of course, Isaac wasn't sacrificed. And so he brought that story up, and he said how, like, that walk for Abraham, and he said that he heard it somewhere, but that walk for Abraham was like every step was a step of faith and at the same time a step of anguish. And how sometimes the walk of faith can feel that way when we don't know the future and we're trying to keep our heads up and we're trying to, you know, keep everything going in the midst of a lot of turmoil or struggle. And it's not like there's tons of turmoil in my life, but there's a lot going on. You know, there's all sorts of stuff going on. And then the government throws in this thing of like saying I'm not essential and saying I can't work. And so there's just a lot of different things. And but so Daniel tells me the story about reminding me of the story. And so as I'm taking my run today and I'm given the one verse, and then I'm reminded of the story, the conversation I just had with the missionaries. And then he brings in, God reminds me of the story I had with Daniel and Jody, and about how, I think it's so beautiful how God does this so many times. He uses the same story that the people I just talked to a couple days ago, he's using the same story, but just a little farther down the road to just bring confirmation that what God is saying right now, to wait, to be okay where things are, to have faith that God is going to provide. You know, just like he has, you know, like the Bible says, there's another place that he brought up to me in the midst of all of this running and me conversing with him, because there's another situation that was happening just this past week where I was looking at a future situation, trying to make some decisions around it, and just not feeling kind of unsettled about it, and decided, you know, to just believe the same. It's really the same thing. Believe that God's going to provide. He's going to work things out in his timing. But he brings up the story, well, the parable that he's talking. Jesus says, you know, are the, you know, lilies of the field, do I not clothe them? The birds of the air, are they not fed and have their own place, a home? Like, just like all of these things, how much more important are you to me than the birds of the air or the flowers in the field? And they're not toiling and trying to make things happen on their own. He said, tomorrow has enough trouble of its own. Just rest in today. Like, believe God for today. And that, yes, we like that nice, neat plan that's in the box with a red ribbon on it. But, you know, that's not always what the walk of faith looks like. If it looked like that, it wouldn't be faith, because we would know what's coming. So I hope this little talk, my experience, maybe speaks to some of you guys where you're at right now. I know this is like a very different time for a lot of us. And just believing God that, you know, just as a good father does, as a parent, when my kid has a need and he's coming to me, how, you know, I want to meet that need. I want to provide for my kids. I want to give them guidance. How much more so is our perfect Father in heaven to do that for us? So anyways, I hope this encouraged you guys. Again, subscribe wherever that button is if you want to hear more stuff like this when I put it out. Also, I've never said this before, but if the things that I've shared, maybe my life journey, the things the Lord has taught me or whatever, has encouraged any of you guys, and you'd like me to come speak somewhere, like, I'm totally open to that. I love to talk. And I'm not afraid to talk in front of people. So anyways, feel free to contact me about that. If you like what you've heard, comment, share, whatever. And I hope you guys all have a great day. It's almost Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all you great mothers out there that I know. And I love you guys. I'll see you guys soon.